Academy Award-winning comedy, drama. He's also behind America's most recognizable cartoon family. James L. Brooks has been writing and producing in Hollywood for 6 decades now. His most recent heroine, Ella McCay, is a young woman in politics, grappling with the challenges of family, career, and the murky corridors of power.
Wait, I don't want to act as though you were just retiring today, when really you're being forced to leave because of multiple relationships with women who work there.
That is one legitimate point of view.
What do you mean? Is there another?
James L. Brooks, hello.
Hi.
Ella McCay takes us back to 2008, a time when, as one of your characters says, we all still liked each other. How do you think your protagonist, Ella, and the story would differ if it was set today?
I think it's in her spirit that she'd still be trying, and it's in our current time that she'd be failing a lot.
Would you like to hear about my favorite community health program?
God, no.
I'm resigning immediately. You're governor. Congratulations. You really couldn't have gotten this any other way.
Well, any last minute advice?
Don't take Ambien more than 3 nights in a row.
And she's admirable in her desire to make things better. She's also a bit chaotic, relatable, complex. You have great form writing vivid female leads, whether it's Mary Richards or the Greenway ladies. Where do you think that talent comes from?
Well, I had a terrible father, and I was raised by a mother and older sister. I think that's pretty much where it happened. My mother had 2 sisters who she was very close to. So as a child, you know, the private things that women say to each other were always the background to my existence.
You're sitting on it.
That must be very frustrating.
Correct.
Well, that's what not screaming will get you. So, listen, Ella, I do have something.
And as well as being a portrait of a woman, Ella McCay is also a glimpse into US politics, the game playing, the lip service. We get the impression that despite her best efforts, the system's rigged to prevent her from improving people's lives, which she wants to do. How much faith do you have in that system today?
Well, there's no question she's going upstream. I mean, there's no question. And you know, as the picture says, the time it takes place in, we were not a divided people. That's new. But it's you know, it's really troublesome when you pause to think about it, because if you're a divided people, your children will be a divided people because of how they're brought up and the influences they have. So, in those terms, it's a pessimistic picture. In terms of one person who can make a dent and can change things a bit, and a bit is a lot, then it's optimistic.
And if you were to shift your mentoring role from film to politics, what advice would you give the character Ella McCay?
Get out. I just think you want people like her to save us, but it's the money, you know. It's when you take somebody of high position and you make high position a rotten job, where you have to spend, and this is a real fact, 8 hours a day on the phone asking for money. Oh, I got a break right now, and you're calling somebody who has a record of contributing or something like that. I mean, it's so self-destructive, and it's ominous, because now you need people who are either so mediocre that it's great for them to do it, or people who grit their teeth and do it because they have a greater sense of service.
And someone else for whom 2008 was a very big year was Michelle Obama. Now, once her First Lady duties were over, she wrote a best-selling memoir in which she name-checked the Mary Tyler Moore Show, which you created, as being inspirational for her life as an independent woman.
First time I've heard that. Well,
She
give me
did.
a second to let it sink in.
She did.
You might just make it after all. The job that's open is associate producer.
Associate producer?
What's the matter?
Nothing. I like it.
It was groundbreaking television. It won 29 Emmys, 56 years after it was first broadcast. What do you see as Mary's legacy?
decency, single woman, which was no small thing in television at the time. You know, that's when women were satellites of men on television, and spirit. I mean, it was noteworthy. There was a great thing that happened to us. We were going on the air, and we were in a spot in the ratings where nobody would ever watch us. We were doomed for failure. And you know, it's always so humbling to think you're catching breaks in life and what it means to you. And a guy took over as president of one of the 3 networks at the time, and was the only person before or since who canceled all the high-rated shows, which tended to be bucolic, very simple-minded comedies, very gentle, and not only put us up and changed our time period to allow us to follow the most successful show maybe one of the most successful shows in history. So that show was up here, and we failed, but we were still, you know, relative. So that's catching a break, yeah.
And one of your most celebrated films was Broadcast News in 1987. I believe you poured plenty of your own experience as a TV news writer into that. That was a time when the evening news set the tone for the nation. It was a monolith of information. In the media landscape today, when you look at the fact that in theory we have more sources, more diversity, do you think that allows us to be better informed?
I think there's no question that we're worse informed. I think, you know, I think everything's polarized. The most successful shows come from a point of view, left or right, but from that point of view, there was a guy called Edward R. Murrow, and he was a war correspondent, you know, under fire. He sort of held the country together as London was bombed, and he had a group that he brought along, and he was a god. And I think one of the most distinguishing things in my life is that you're looking at somebody right now who brought Edward R. Murrow coffee.
No small thing.
No small thing.
And you are also behind arguably the greatest animated TV series of all time, The Simpsons, now in its 37th year, 800 episodes this year, I believe. This parody of American suburban life has often predicted things, which then actually happened.
As you know, we've inherited quite a budget crunch from President Trump. How bad is it, Secretary Van Houten?
We're broke.
How was The Simpsons so clairvoyant?
Total chance, total when you do 800 shows, you have to get something right. But now we're doing a new movie, and we're having fun with that. We're going to attempt consciously to make predictions, so.
And like you say, 800 shows. What do you think is the secret to its success? Did you see it going on for so long at the beginning?
We were on, at the time we went on, we were on a network that, at the time, no one watched. It didn't have that many stations, and then there was a day that I walked in, and there was a magazine no longer around for a long time, Satellite News, and it had us on the cover, and I put it on the bulletin board, and then it was like a crunch. All of a sudden, there's this crazy sound almost that you make when you enter the culture. It was nuts. One moment we were looking like this, and the other like that.
And as well as your own success writing and producing, you've also played an important mentoring role for younger filmmakers. For example, Wes Anderson, you executive produced his first feature, Bottle Rocket, back in 1996. The industry has changed so much since then. How do you think an offbeat talent like Wes Anderson would do today?
My honest answer is I don't know, because, you know, there is, you know, I think content is one of the worst words that I ever saw make its way into the language, because it makes everything serving some unseen master above. Content, it's not. But there's so many outlets. So I don't know. I think it's a great question. I don't know how to speculate on it.
Because there are two camps. There are people who say that we're about to enter an era of, like you say, content, AI slop. But then others who say this is a golden age of television. There are bigger budgets for television series, more prestige in the writer's room. Where do you stand on that debate?
Bigger budgets for proven something.
Okay.
Bigger budgets when you follow the rules. You know, if you have a novel idea, I don't think that's true. But on the one hand, you know, it used to be if somebody tried to predict the success of anything, it was folly. You know, you couldn't tell. Now you can tell. There's data. If it has this in common and this in common, and you hit so many points, and there's a Netflix executive who way back I heard on a stage brag that they know whether a show is successful in the first 5 minutes, which is sort of anti-give me a break, you know? This is what I believe. I believe the heartbeat's true. I believe there's always somebody who will violate the rules, that somebody will come, yeah, I believe that. So I guess I'm sort of terminally optimistic.
That talent will out.
Yes, yeah.
And in 2008, the big word was hope. Do you still have hope?
Oh, it took a long time coming up with that word. Yeah. I think in the United States, you know, the big hope with what's happened to us is, can somebody appear that will bring us together? Because it's never going to be vibrant unless that happens. And you know, and that's the question, that's the prayer.
James L. Brooks, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, pleasure.
Your mother was a lovely woman, but thank the Lord you have your father to lean on.
Thank you for stopping by and possibly meaning well.
If I don't have a title, I'm your what?
Husband?
That's a hard thing to put on a parking space.